everybody. Thanks so much for meeting with us today. I'm Amanda Leah, and I'm thrilled to introduce a very exciting guest for our members today. After attempting a vegan and keto diet, she's been a strict carnivore for over a year. She's an advocate of home cooking and being supplement-free. She's regrown her hair while maintaining a healthy relationship with food, and her weight after losing 150 pounds. Along with her husband, Chris, she has inspired her mother, Melissa, and all of us. Thank you so much for joining us, Laura Spath. Feeling fab today, Laura?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I know you all mentioned about mentioning an inspirational woman to me. So I want to start by saying that I think that one of the people who I think when we share what we share, we don't realize who's listening and how it affects people. And Nutrition with Judy, or Judy Cho, I've gotten to know her in the last several years, but before I knew who she was or she knew who I was, she had shared something about moderators versus abstainers. And I know she didn't originate that principle, but she's been very open about her own journey, and she's been very open about that concept and realizing how important it was for her to realize she's an abstainer and can't moderate any food or substances of any kind. And so that to me was one of the most profound moments of this journey, was realizing that I was somebody who needed to abstain. I needed to treat food and carbs and sugar like a drug, and I couldn't have little moments here or there. And so I don't think she even knows that specifically, but I am very grateful to her. And she has definitely changed my journey, and without, I think, even realizing it.
That's
but
awesome.
I am excited.
Thanks for sharing that. That's so great. Thank you. I'm sure all of us are going to be running to check Judy Cho if we don't know her already. And that's a really cool concept. And we'll definitely get to the chat and see if people have tons of questions a little bit later, but we'd love to hear more about your story now.
Sure. So my name's Laura, I think, for those of you who don't know, and I have been a carnivore now for, like Amanda said, over a year. I think we're coming up pretty close to like over a year and a half now. I grew up in a very simple family. We lived in a very rural environment. We had a garden. My dad hunted. We had a very simple life. My mom made homemade bread every day of my childhood growing up. We didn't have TV. I really loved that simple childhood. And right around the time that I was entering puberty, we had some loss, a lot of trauma, a lot of sadness that happened in our family over the course of a couple different years, a couple big events. And I think one of the ways that people comfort you in times of sorrow is to bring you food. And, we were a big church family, so the casseroles and the food and, kind of all of this dealing with grief in general, I started to use food for that. And it was, I think, right around, like I said, right around puberty. So it's where I just really started to eat more for comfort and started gaining weight. And pretty soon after that, I left and went to college and was introduced to like processed foods and fast foods, convenience meals, box meals for the first time. And so my weight continued to go up and up at that point. I would stop on my way to like class every single morning. I would stop at a gas station and get like, the biggest Diet Coke I could find, and then a 6-pack of the white powder Hostess donuts was my typical daily breakfast. And then normal, college food, cafeteria food for lunch. But then there's the snacks. I think there was a Taco Bell nearby. I used to like walk to Taco Bell pretty much every day. And really over the course of college gained probably 50 pounds. And I think that was just it. It was eating for fun. It was eating for pleasure. It was eating for stress. Like I'm stressed out, I want to eat. I'm emotional, I want to eat. And obviously college is a very emotional roller coaster. And so that really those patterns continued for me. Once I graduated was the first time that I really felt like maybe I should start going on a diet or worry about what I weighed. And cool, I was able to lose weight. I could lose 20 pounds, but there's something about that magic 20 pounds where you feel like you deserve a reward after 20 pounds. And so the majority of the time I would lose 20 pounds and then have my cheat day celebration because I hit 20 pounds and then never get back on track again. I have done that more times in my life than I can even count. I've said for years and years, I could lose 20 pounds like that. 20 pounds is easy. It's past that that's hard because I'm never able to get back on track after that. And so I would go through fluctuations of lose 20 pounds, gain 30, lose 20 more, gain 40, and really kept going up and down. I think I probably hit like over 200 pounds in, early before I graduated college. And then I was probably around 240 for the first time when I was like in my mid 20s. And that's when some friends, I watched the movie Forks Over Knives, which everybody does, and decided that I was going to try a vegan diet. A friend of mine's mother was diagnosed with cancer around the same time, and she had decided that was how she was going to heal herself, which just breaks my heart now to think that that's what they still do. But so that was what we all decided. We were going to go vegan and be healthy and lose weight. My mom decided to do that with me. I lost 50 pounds during that time. I was eating every 3 or 4 hours, roasted vegetables, quinoa, hummus, tons of fruit, oatmeal, like everything that you're supposed to do, whole foods. It wasn't even like vegan junk food. There was no packaged food or processed food. It was just all whole foods. And I lost 50 pounds, but it took so much work and effort, and I really didn't feel good. I was having a lot of digestive issues at the time. Having to take a lot of supplements just to like go to the bathroom because I thought, how much more fiber can I really eat? And then all of a sudden my hair started falling out, which is, I've learned over the years, my hair responds it's very finicky, or my hair is very dramatic, where any kind of massive change in my body and all my hair falls out. And so I started going to the doctor. I got a lot of stuff tested. There was no thyroid issues, no, nothing that they could find that was an issue. Other than just the fact that I was losing my hair. So I think it was around Christmas where, we decided to like have steaks for Christmas dinner, and I just felt so good and so amazing after that I really never went back to being vegan after that. But then I also added back in ice cream and pizzas and all the other terrible foods that that were the issue before. And so very quickly gained back all the weight that I had lost plus some. I met my husband, and he was also heavy. I was heavy. We were both kind of close to our heavier weights. I was like maybe 230 pounds when we met, and he was probably 250 pounds. We got pregnant very quickly, and I was up to like 260 pounds. I actually was very careful when I was pregnant the first time because I didn't want to gain too much weight, but I gained, I think, 30 pounds at that point. And after I had my daughter, I decided I was going to lose the weight, and I was going to get very serious. And so I went on a very low carb, but also calorie restrictive diet. And, my daughter just turned 6. So this was 6 years ago, and I lost 70 pounds. I did a weight loss competition with people at work, and which I'm very good at. Like, if you want to challenge me to something, I will win. I'm a very competitive person, especially if there's money on the line. I will do what I can to beat anybody. And so somebody said, here's the specific dates for a contest. This is your restriction goals. Here's what I'm, betting you. I will absolutely, I can do that. I can stick to anything for that amount of time. And so I lost, like I said, I think 70 pounds. I got all the way down to 167 pounds was my final weigh-in date. I have pictures of me from that time. And we celebrated the day I won the pot, won like $400 or something, and went out for cheesesteaks and ice cream, and then decided to take the weekend off from the diet and really never got back on track again, because that's kind of been the theme I've realized in my entire life, is that I'm very good at restriction and goals and competition, but the moderation, like I said in the beginning, is not something that I'm capable of doing. It's definitely, I'm an all or nothing kind of person. And so I gained back, I think I quickly, over the course of 6 months, gained back all the weight that I had lost and got up to 220 pounds when I got pregnant with my son. maybe there was some more fluctuations around there because he's almost 4 now. So I'm sure there was a few more like lose 20, gain 30 type of circumstances in there. But I was 220 pounds when I got pregnant with my son. And then when I had him, I was 255 pounds. When I was losing that weight with my daughter, I was doing so extreme low carb. Like I was living on hot dogs wrapped in a low carb tortilla, tuna salad, and wrapped in a low carb tortilla. Like anything that you could put in a low carb tortilla was pretty much how I lived. But it was also really low calories. I was struggling a lot with like my milk supply and nursing my daughter. And so this time I used that as an excuse to say that I wanted nursing to be easier with my son. He had a lip tie and a tongue tie. And I just was like, I can't deal with pumping this turn. I need to focus on nursing. So that means I need a calorie surplus to be able to have an effective milk supply for him. So I ate a lot of ice cream and just a lot of snacks. And I just made zero effort whatsoever to lose weight while I was nursing him. And so really that spent, I think after the initial 10 pounds that I lost from leaving the hospital, I really never lost weight after having him. Maybe there was some fluctuations here or there, but I really stayed about that same 250 pounds for at least a year. And then I would do the same thing. I would lose, I think I lost 30 pounds at one point and gained it all back and back and forth. We had started planning his second birthday, and I realized that I weighed 200. I went to the doctor and I weighed 263 pounds, which this was my same doctor that I had used for when I went into labor with him. So I realized that he was almost 2. I weighed more than I did than when I went into labor with him. And so I knew that was kind of a wake up call for me. We also had family pictures that day, like around, or that same week. And my largest pair of pants, which I had recently had to buy, like a pair of size 20 pants, I couldn't even button them. And I had to do the hair tie trick, retake the hair tie, put it around the buttons to keep my, like a gap out. I had to go buy all new shirts for these family pictures because nothing I had would fit. And so my husband and I said, okay, this is it. I had to call the photographer and tell her no full body pictures. I only want, from the chest up for all these pictures. And just the anxiety that I felt just having family pictures in general, with being that uncomfortable with myself, was really overwhelming. And so those couple things combined were a really big motivator for me. So March 12th of 2018, I started a low carb diet again. Really, this time I'm very influenced by movies, as you'll see. We watched The Magic Pill. And so I was like, all right, well, this time I'm going to do low carb again, but I'm going to stick more of like keto. And I downloaded like a keto app and did keto macros and really started that way. But it was still a lot of processed foods. I was doing a lot of Quest bars and a lot of low carb tortillas. And then, lost 20 pounds. I'm really good at that. But after that, I realized that this time I was a little more serious, a little more dedicated. And so I didn't have that cheat day at the 20 pounds. I, pushed it out a little bit further to hopefully, keep the weight loss going a little longer. And by that point, we were doing more research. My husband had heard of Dr. Jason Fung, who really advocates fasting. And so since my husband was diabetic, type 2 diabetic, we realized that fasting and started researching how helpful that would be and how beneficial that would be. So we started doing intermittent fasting, tried out like a 48-hour fast. And the more we started researching, the better we felt. We started cutting out the processed foods. I cut out the Quest bars pretty instantly. After not having one for like a week, and then you add it back in, you realize how terrible you feel and just how it's not that good anyway. So I cut those out. I got rid of my beloved low carb tortillas and realized how much better I felt. And around that same time, we discovered carnivore in general. And so that was, a year and a half ago, summer of 2018. And, found Sean Baker through Joe Rogan and then the Carnivore Cast. And that's what made a big difference for me, was finding the Carnivore Cast podcast and hearing some women start talking about this and, realizing that that it wasn't just my husband being picky and not wanting to eat vegetables, but that I could do this and that I could, have some benefits as well. And so that's really where I did this whole, I'll try it out for a month and see how I feel. which anybody that I know who that's actually given a really solid month has never gone back unless they knew they were going to feel terrible afterwards. But, and that's where kind of things picked up, where I started carnivore, and I haven't had a vegetable now in the last year and a half. I, was able to finally maintain things. I was no longer tracking my macros. At the end of the day, I wasn't, still hungry. I wasn't sitting on the couch going insane, trying to figure out like what in this house could I eat right now that's going to fit into my macros. The fasting combined with carnivore in general has really helped me to curb emotional eating, to take away the need that I have for snacking, or just, when I'm stressed out and you want to grab something from the pantry, or, just having those limitations, because I'm so good at the limitations, telling myself like, this is what time you're going to eat. But you can eat as much meat as you want during this time frame has been really liberating for me. And then like I mentioned along the way, realizing that I was an abstainer and that I couldn't have the cheat day. And it's like the longer you go without a cheat day, the more you realize how better you feel and the freedom that you feel from not needing that. There are two very different kinds of people who need to know that every Friday night they can have 2 slices of pizza and then get back on track Saturday. And honestly, I think that's great for a lot of people. But if you told me I could have 2 slices of pizza every Friday night, I would eat a whole pizza and a pint of ice cream, and then probably some, other foods that I won't mention to not trigger anybody. And then Saturday I would wake up feeling so terrible that I would just start digging in the pantry looking for something that's, or order Uber Eats breakfast donuts, or I just couldn't get back into it. The shame that I would feel from doing that would cause more overeating and more, carb desires and more cravings. And then I just am mad and sad and frustrated. And so then I just keep doing it. And I have a really hard time stopping that shame cycle when I get into that place. And so the best way for me to not get into that place is just to not do it. And so I think that's been the biggest revelation for me, or biggest burden that I've been trying to lift, and sitting here now, 18 months into it, I want to say like, it's great and it's easy and I'm fine. I still have hard days. I still have days when I'm stressed and the first thing I want to do is go through a drive-through, or, this sounds really bizarre, but like gas stations are very triggering for me, because I would eat food from a gas station literally every single day. I stopped at a gas station every morning on my way to work and got a bag of snacks. And I would pick different gas stations so that way that the gas station people thought maybe I was buying snacks for the week, and that people didn't realize that I'm spending $20 on gas station snacks like every single morning, and keep them in your desk drawer at work. So that way they're not sitting on the desk for your coworkers to see. And when, I'm between meetings or I'm alone in my office, it's just snacking, constantly having, access to food. So it doesn't mean I don't have days where I don't think about that or I don't want to do that, but I'm able to abstain from that. I'm using the tools that I've learned, and I'm able to reach out to my support system and talk about it more, so that I have longer of abstinence. I have more, sobriety, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, from carbs. And it's been the biggest part for me, where for the first time in my life, I've been able to lose weight and then not instantly go back up again. I'm not the exact same weight that I was a year ago, but I'm I think 20 pounds, right? There's a 20-pound difference from where I was a year ago. But I think now versus a year ago, I'm in a healthier place. I'm stronger now. My body's in a healthier place. I'm not as thin necessarily as I was a year ago, but I still consider that maintenance, because I'm a lot healthier now mentally and physically than I was then. I think that's
awesome. Awesome. What a brilliant story you've shared. How you mentioned this abstaining concept versus moderating that Judy shared with you, I think probably rings true for a lot of us. And also talking about your yo-yo dieting is very interesting, like from way back, because again, I think my mother, I know, struggled with that for a very long time. I watched her struggle like that. And then all of the side effects towards your hair loss. I know a lot of women probably have questions about your hair, but what I wanted to ask you first is, in terms of how you manage now, you know, with going to the gas stations, the drive-throughs, these triggering things, how do you avoid and prep for these moments, these cravings?
I have to know, I think I try to acknowledge like when am I going to be triggered, or if I'm feeling emotional, I just can't stop somewhere on my way home. You know, that's helpful. I'm very open. My husband and I are very open with each other about things that I'm going through. And so me just telling him like, you know, I'm had a bad day at work, I'm just stressed out. And he was like, okay, I'll see you in 25 minutes. Like, I know that I have that accountability where he knows I'll come straight home. And in a positive way. I don't think, you know, he's not controlling it that way, but I think trying to know when I'm triggered and avoid some of those habits. I change up what I'm going to listen to on the way home. So I listen to a podcast on the way home, or something that would maybe encourage me. I try to, for me, having a plan of what is my next meal and when really helps. And so the times when I'm feeling the most stressed is when I might splurge and buy an expensive steak. You know, if I've had a really rough week at work and I spend more on, you know, some fancy rib cap steaks from Costco, I'm totally fine with that, because it's helping me that's my Friday night treat or my Saturday treat. And on a Friday night when I'm feeling stressed and triggered or emotional and wanting to eat, knowing, you know, what I'm going to eat on Saturday that's exciting for me and that I know is going to be satisfying for me is really helpful. Sometimes, you know, I live a lot on budget grocery store steaks or burger patties, and that works 90% of the time for me. But sometimes emotionally, I need something more exciting than that. And especially when I'm triggered. Because if you were telling me on a Friday night that you were going to have like chicken leftovers or warmed up burger patties on a Saturday, I'm just like, forget it. Let's order a pizza. I don't want to do that. But if I know something that's going to be really exciting for me, it's easier for me to hold out and kind of push past that, I guess.
That's a great strategy. That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned that you're still fasting, and you mentioned Dr. Fung, who is excellent. He's a Torontonian like myself. We're very,
Nice.
very proud of him and what he's doing for the conversation of fasting. Just curious, how long are you fasting now? I know you mentioned that you like to have a certain amount of time to have your eating in, and I actually feel the same way. How long do you generally fast?
I personally just like to do one meal a day. It's easiest for me to be able to eat as much as I want in that one, you know, within an hour or within that one specific meal. I feel really full, and then there's no temptation to snack or munch, because right now what I just ate for lunch, there's no way I could eat anything else right now. But if I ate half as much now and then tried to save the other half for 3 hours from now, it would be very tempting for me to munch a little bit in between. So I do one meal a day right now. And then, you know, once a week, I try to do a 48-hour fast, at least once a week. The longer I sometimes get a little less specific about doing that now, the longer that I've been doing it. But I do think it's really good for me mentally and physically to just once a week give my body that break. And usually like Mondays, because I do tend to eat a lot more on Saturdays and Sundays, just because I'm home and it's the one time I get to grill at home, so I get too excited and just eat a lot. And so usually Mondays I like to do a 48-hour fast and just kind of give my mind and my body a break.
Fabulous. That's good. I haven't tried 48 hours yet, but I've considered it. Haven't gotten that high yet. I love how you were mentioning that your husband, when he first brought it to you, you were like, I'm not sure if this is actually something he just wants to avoid veggies or, but you said zero veggies since, which is the carnivore way. However, did you try any reintroductions? Have you done 0-0? What are your thoughts on fiber now?
After like a little while of doing carnivore, I gave myself a big salad, just because I thought, like, what can that hurt really? And I felt really terrible. I started having a lot of digestive issues after eating that, a lot of cramping in my stomach. And so since then, I just have really never tried to have it again. I've had a few other foods, you know, occasionally since, and things just I never feel as good doing that. I'm really not dying for some like a salad at this point. Enough, like it's not something that I'm craving, or I'd rather have a steak. So I'm not really that concerned. If I can never like reintroduce broccoli again, I'll be okay. So I haven't really tried too much, mainly because it just isn't that appealing to me. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If people feel good eating those foods, then they could.
Got it. So also another question that comes to mind. Well, actually, you mentioned Judy Cho and how she's influenced you. And when we had Sarah Kleiner at Carnivore Yogi on, she mentioned how you inspired her to start sharing and to make her video. So we know you're inspiring people just based on our guests, but obviously we've been all inspired. So how did you get started sharing? How did you get the courage to do that?
I really, I always talk about how this is a very accidental thing for me, sharing my life, especially on Instagram. I have had an Instagram account for many years and had maybe 10 posts on it. I would post once or twice a year, pictures of the kids, or even before I had kids, I think I had like 2 pictures on there. It just wasn't a platform that I really used very much. If anything, I was like stalking all these other people and, using it to watch other people or learn. And I never follow some of my favorite celebrities, but it wasn't something that I ever shared on. I was more of a Facebook and Snapchat person at the time. And when I hit the 120 pounds weight loss, I just decided I had joined at that point the World Carnivore Tribes, and was following, Sean Baker and following some other people that were pretty influential. And I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to show those results. It was mid World Carnivore month of 2019. And so as a way of kind of hoping to bring a little bit of awareness, but more so saying thank you to some of the people that had influenced me, I posted a before and after picture on Instagram in January of last year and kind of tagged a couple of the people that were really inspiring to me and that had made a big difference. And as soon as I did that, within, I think like pretty quickly, Sean Baker saw that and reposted it on his page. And so I went from having like less than 100 of my friends and family on my Instagram to, within 24 hours, I had like 1,000 people on there. And there was a lot of people that ended up resharing it through World Carnivore Tribe, and then just several people also on Instagram. And then I got a call, like Brian Sanders from Food Lies was one of the people that reshared it, and he called and talked to me, and we did a podcast together that like within a week. He called and kind of got my story. And he ended up actually, this is the kind of the cool thing, he didn't release it for 6 months. And 6 months later, we did like a 6-month check-in. And so then when he did release the story, it was kind of a 2-part series. But really at that point, I was blown away. I think my second ever like public post, you could just see me saying like, well, that was unexpected. And so I was trying to answer some of the questions that I was getting the day before, and it was a good outlet for me. I was figuring out at that point, like, okay, and I've hit my weight loss goals. Like, now what do I do? And the temptation at the time was to have a cheat day. And so in some ways that really distracted me. Having people share my stuff and the comments and answering people's questions was a good distraction from needing a cheat day. And then, really since then, it's just kind of turned into what it is today, I guess, of just me sharing my life and my family and what I eat every day. I tell my coworkers that like sometimes we'll be eating lunch and I take a picture and they just kind of laugh and roll their eyes. And I'm like, I know you guys hate it, but there's actually people that care what I'm eating for lunch today. Like, you guys are tired of hearing me talk about it, but I swear somebody is going to ask me like, what did you eat today? And I think that's what it is. It's very healing for me to be able to talk about it. It holds me accountable. And I think that's why I've kept doing it, is that it's really helped to keep me accountable and give me something to focus on that's not, food or something like that. It gives me a good outlet.
100%. It's perfect. It sounds like, so you were propelled into it by Sean Baker and then you really kept up with it, and accountability is a perfect reason to stick with it. And speaking of accountability, you have people in your life, like your husband, doing it with you, that probably helps a lot. I'd love to hear more about that, and especially how inspiring it is that you got your mom involved. And I know she recently went through a surgery and she cut out dairy and she's been going through stuff. So how has it been having the people in your life actually really be there to help with your accountability?
I mean, for me, I think it's made all the difference. You know, in the past, my husband and I always yo-yoed together, and we've always been the ones like, we really could just have a cheat night tonight. Like, what's it gonna hurt? And we've been the ones causing each other to fail. And this time, he's definitely the one that keeps me strong sometimes, and I'll do the same for him. And it's made a big difference. I hear people say all the time that they're the only ones in their house that are doing this and everybody else is eating pizza. And it breaks my heart because I don't know if I would be that strong. And I know how hard that is. I can be good around other people at work. Everybody's eating something bad at work. Like, that's no problem. I'm not going to let anybody see me fail. That's the competitive part in me coming out. But in my house, alone at home, if there's Oreos in the pantry, it would be really hard for me if nobody was watching to stay strong. And I know that people that don't have the same support system in their real life that I do, I give them so much support and love. And hopefully, hopefully they can find a way to push through for that, because I don't know if I would have been strong enough this entire time. So it's so much harder that way. My mom is also somebody else who'd yo-yoed with us together. We went up and down and up and down. She went vegan with me. We've gone on a lot of the same weight loss cycles, even though we were living in separate states for, the last 15 years. We've definitely gone on a lot of those cycles together where we would both be on hey, I'm going to see you in 2 months. Let's go on a diet and see if we can lose weight until we see each other. So, getting her on board with this was pretty amazing. And she's never going to believe what I say to her in any way, but getting her to read things like Dr. Berry and Dr. Fung were really influential to her in, helping her. So she's lost a lot of weight now. She is, in her early 60s, right around the time where, she has Hashimoto's, type 2 diabetes, and a lot of arthritis from some broken bones in the past. And she knows a huge difference in the way that she feels when she's a strict carnivore. She might have some macadamia nuts or some dark chocolate as a special treat, but she definitely knows a major difference in how she feels with that. And she's somebody too, she had been thin most of her entire adult life. When we went around a lot of that same loss and grief when I was in puberty, she was in her mid 30s at the time. And she was, I think, a size 5, she was wearing size 5 clothes, and she, over the course of a year, gained 100 pounds. And she's done that, lose 100 pounds, gain 100 pounds, a few times, like I have. So, she's another person who has the way that she impacts. She has all kinds of people at her job that now see her. They've seen her yo-yo diet and fall off the wagon so many times. The fact that she's been extremely consistent and not having any cheats for a year is so impactful to the women that she works with. And then also her family. She has 3 brothers who all are type 2 diabetic. And at this point, all 3 of them are doing some version of keto or strict, anywhere from keto to strict carnivore. And all 3 of them are off of their diabetes medications. They're all in their 60s and are just really healing. And I think that's one of those things that, to me, the consistency means everything. She was very concerned with the fasting and the no vegetables in the beginning, until she saw some time and consistency, and then also heard other doctors, talking about that.
It's excellent how you talk about how she's inspiring people in her life. Yeah. And obviously we see how many you're inspiring as well. But I would imagine, especially now that the bigger you get in the conversation of the carnivore movement, that you're probably getting a little bit of negative feedback. I'm sure you're dealing with it great, but I'd love to know about, are there any people in your life personally, how you're dealing with their negative? Because you have those people on your side. Are there still the people in your life that are close to you that you have to manage their thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think, the people trolling online is hilarious, and that doesn't bother me at all. But it's the people, like you said, in real life. I have 2 people specifically that come to mind. One of them was a really close girlfriend of mine who, we were not she lived in another state. And so most of our relationship was through online. And I think that she was always somebody who had her life together, and I was the one that was a hot mess. And so when for the first time, like, I got my stuff together and didn't need her constantly, like, I didn't need to constantly be going to her as I'm a disaster, please help me. That relationship really fell apart. And I think that I think it showed a lot with both of these people. It shows a lot about the other person. And I don't mean that to just say, like, I'm fine, I'm not the problem. But, when she couldn't be the better person in the relationship, she didn't want to have a relationship anymore. And so our friendship really dissolved over time. And then, one day I went to go find her and on Instagram, and she had completely blocked me from, like, every form of social media. And I was like, all right, I guess we're not friends anymore. But I think that was where some, feelings of, I didn't need her to, like, I wasn't doing it her way anymore, right? I was doing things before. I was following her advice as far as low carb and calorie restriction and exercise. And when I found a way that was different than what she suggested and was working better for me and for my weight loss results, like, all of a sudden I had lost more weight and I was eating steaks and I was feeling happier, and I didn't need her to, advice, I guess, anymore. That was really hard for her. And so that relationship pretty much dissolved. And then I have somebody who's like a really amazing coworker, friend, right? You're at work sometimes more than you're at home. I'm at work and I travel for my job more than I'm home. And this is somebody that I still see now on a very regular basis. And, he is somebody who I've known for 8 years and was there when my kids were born, and was, it's just been a very close friend, person in mine and my husband's life together. And he is definitely not okay with this way of eating, tells me constantly that I'm going to have a heart attack, that I have an eating disorder, sat down in a work environment and said, like, you have a problem, you have an eating disorder. I just can't even stand to look at you anymore. Like, it's, I just get so angry when I talk to you, and when I look at you, I don't want to be around you. I see you order meat and I just want to, like, throw it out the window. Like, he just is so angry. And again, I'm not trying to say, like, well, I'm fine, you're the problem, but I know for a fact that it has to do with the fact that he is unhealthy. He is not in a good place with his own health and his emotions. He's frustrated that he doesn't believe that what I'm doing is right. And he can't find anything that's working for him, right? But at the end of the day, he won't stop drinking. He won't stop, doing all these things that are unhealthy. He's having heart problems. And when he describes, like, the things he's going through, I'm like, well, you have fatty liver. You clearly are pre-diabetic. You are having heart issues. You're having all these things. And, he's one of those people, and I think we all know people like this, that is going to believe every single thing that a doctor tells you, and they're going to get every single test done and take every single pill. And my doctor told me that red meat is bad for my cholesterol, and I have high cholesterol, and so you're going to die because of your cholesterol, and I'm going to take these 17 pills that my doctor told me to. His eyes keep getting worse, and I'm like, because you have high sugar and fatty liver. Like, I see Lisa on here, like, his eyes are going bad because of your diet. And so it's really hard. And I think that we are still people, I have to talk to him every day still, because of my job, but we definitely do not have the same friendship and closeness that we did a year ago. I think because I trigger him to feel bad about himself. And I think that was one of the similarities with those two relationships, is sometimes, the more that you're okay and I'm not this broken person anymore that needs everybody else uplifting me. I don't need them to fix me anymore. It really, sometimes it all of a sudden starts reflecting on them, and, they have a hard time looking back on themselves now. Like, wait, I can't give all of my focus fixing you. I now have to start looking at myself again. And I don't like that. That's uncomfortable. So I'm going to be mad that you've taken away that outlet for me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And I'm sorry for your loss with that one friendship that didn't work out, and for the friendship that's difficult. I think we all have, I'm glad you spoke to that, because I think we all have some experience with that. And you're right. Sometimes we're triggering something in someone and they're reflecting And then or deflecting. And then in other cases, it's hard to switch that role reversal in a relationship, and sometimes just being around someone who's succeeding, misery loves company. So it's kind of hard. But okay, so we're really excited to go to the chat. There's some great questions here. First, we'll go with anonymous questions and I'll read some of them out. And then if anybody wants to come on camera, we'll ask them to come in after that. But just to take us into that, you said something in one of your videos that I really loved. So I'd love you to speak to that as we include the women in. Your quote was, "Women eating steak. We got to support each other." It's a whole far cry from the expectation of women eating salad all the time. So I love that. Can you speak to that a little bit as we get into this chat?
People think I'm crazy for how much meat that I eat. And, by now my really close friends and coworkers are used to that, but I travel a lot for my job, and just watching the look on people's faces when I order sometimes, or people that I'm not around very often, is really shocking. And I think I've mentioned too before, at my heaviest weight, I would have not felt comfortable going into a restaurant and ordering just meat, only meat. And it would have been really hard for me. It's a very brave thing for people to do that from the very beginning. I gradually went into this world, but because I do think there's fear of judgment. And I think we're a little more paranoid about that. Like, what do I really care if this random person at this restaurant thinks of me when I'm never going to see them again? But it's a hard emotional thing. And, sometimes people who are the hardest critics of ours are other women in our lives. You see a thin woman eating a salad and you're maybe heavier and you're sitting there eating a steak or two. It's a really brave, hard thing to know that you are doing the right thing and that you are giving your body nutrients and healthy foods when, society expects you to be eating these salads all the time. And so, if I go to a corporate lunch, most of the time I just prefer not to eat because everybody else is eating sandwiches and salads. And rather than me eating a bunch of meat and this with a corporate executive sitting around, sometimes it's easier for me just to eat nothing or eat a smaller portion, just because I don't want to have that I don't want to be judged, or, I don't want them to think something weird. To think about me in a negative way, and have my reputation be weird. It's different sharing on Instagram and this online community where you have all the support, but when you're dealing with people that don't know you at all, or, I don't need to get into a conversation in a corporate setting about my cholesterol or the fact that I'm going to have a heart attack, right? So those are most of the times when I just choose to fast. But I think a lot of women are not used to eating red meat in general. We get a lot of, I think we've all had the conversation with somebody saying I just don't like steak, or I never eat red meat, or can I have chicken instead? And most women are not used to eating red meat weekly, let alone daily.
Very true. Thank you for speaking to that. I think a lot of us deal with judgment and food and concerns about that to some extent. So excellent. So our first question from the chat is about your hair, and someone would love to know, how long did it take you to start seeing growth?
So I think originally, I think part of the reason why my hair was falling out was after both my kids, I lost some hair. This was way more. When I was vegan was a lot, and then now this time was also a lot. So I do think in general, any kind of big change to your body, my hair reacts very quickly to that. So I know that the large amount of weight loss very quickly had something to do with that. I also know when I was going back and looking at my keto macro tracker I used, a year and a half ago, it was showing that I was eating 50 grams of protein a day or 35 grams of protein a day, which is so low. And that's what I attribute one of the number one reasons to why so much of my hair fell out this time, more than after I had babies or more than before. So once I switched and upped my protein to, 4 or 5 times that much, I started, your hair is so slow to respond. So I still had another 3 months of hair shed. And then I finally started seeing hair growth. And actually exactly a year ago, February of last year was the first time that I posted a picture that said, there's hope out there. Look, I have tiny little baby sprouts. I had 2 inches of baby sprouted hair on the top of my head. And now that hair is this hair, right? So it's all the way past my chin. But 1 year ago, all of this was completely bald. So if I pulled my hair back, you just saw my whole scalp. And this, especially this kind of halo around my head, goes all the way underneath and all the way around. Like I can't, wear a ponytail right now because everywhere has this growth. So this wasn't it. This growth that I have here was in 1 year. But these 3-month cycles, it took like 3 months after I changed my diet before my hair stopped falling out. And then another 3 months of kind of nothing. And then finally it started growing back again in February. And then that's the amount that I've had grow in the last full year. And I've had some haircuts since then, so maybe there's a trim in there somewhere, but for the most part, they're just letting the shorter pieces grow.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. Wow. I love that you can see the actual differences in your hair. That's super.
Yeah.
Super.
My
Another question.
backwards mullet,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's a great reason to not be able to make a ponytail for now. It's perfect. So another question in the chat is from someone who said she can't get into fasting. It makes her feel ill, and she's just wondering, is she missing out? Do you have any thoughts for people who aren't able to fast?
I know that in Dr. Fung's book, he talks about how fasting is a muscle, and the same way that you have to, I just did a really long fast, which I don't necessarily think is right for everybody. But if you're looking to go 24 hours or 48 hours, I think that you can build up to that. If you normally eat within a 12-hour window, maybe try 13 hours for a few weeks. And that's how I ended up at 1 meal a day. It was really gradual. I started with 3 meals a day and no snacks. And that was a big change for me. Just to start having 0 snacks when I first started all of this was a big difference. And then I would find that I wasn't as hungry for lunch. I think if you're having a hard time going shorter than about 2 meals a day, I would suggest looking at what you ate the meal before. If I'm eating something that's much too lean or not enough calories, then if I wake up in the morning and I'm really hungry, that's pretty rare for me, because I will look then at what did I eat yesterday to that's so lean, and why am I so hungry this morning? So if I just eat a bunch of plain burger patties from certain fast food restaurants, they're actually really lean because most of the fat cooks away from them. I will be hungry much quicker than I just ate a rib cap and a ribeye for lunch today. The fat content in that, I should be able to be nice and full for a long time. So I think partly you can look at what did I eat previously? Was it enough calories and enough nutrients to satisfy me? And then also I think just time, and more than anything, consistency. If you have had carbs or sugar or cheats or anything in the recent future, your body is still craving that, and you're going to get nauseous, and it's going to be harder for you to do that, right? And if you're too lean, I still have some body fat. The leaner that I get, when I was at my very leanest, I did not do any type of longer fast because you don't have the body fat to sustain you. So if you don't have excess body fat for your body to live on, you need to not do something that's a longer fast. You might need to keep eating.
That's a very logical response. Thank you. That's great. Another question from the chat is about Botox and makeup and hair and nails, and just overall, if you have any thoughts about that or views on whether it's real things or that you use on the daily basis, or additional things that ladies can do to support their beauty.
I have noticed a tremendous difference in my skin just from the longer I've been carnivore. And so, I used to have a lot of issues with acne and spots on my face, and now just eating meat has really cleared that up. I don't know if I would do Botox, more just because I'm cheap, so I don't do that. So this is more expensive. But I guess I don't really have a thought or a care either way. I probably should, but if that's something that you wanted to do, I think it's great, and go for it. As far as makeup goes, I definitely still shop at Sephora or stop at Walmart. My mascara is from Walmart, right? And it's not the all natural products. I would like to look into getting into that in the future. It's just there are some times when you just can't take on changing everything at the same time, right? My entire house is not chemical free. I don't have every piece of plastic out of my house. These are goals and things that are good to do. But if I try to take on too much perfection right away, it's just too overwhelming for me. And then I fall apart on everything. And that's when I give into emotional eating triggers. I use this quote a lot, but it's don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And right now I'm focusing on being good and being good to me and keeping my diet perfect and then letting everything else be pretty good. But I can't worry about, there's probably a pan in there that, like, you know, Paul Saladino would freak out if he saw my Teflon pan in my pantry. But I mean, at this point, it is what it is. I would like to change those things out over time. I don't have the money or the emotional effort to invest in making everything perfect right now. It's also one of the reasons why I had to get myself together before I could change up what my kids were eating. And so once I felt like I was doing good and was dialed in and was in a safe, healthy place for me and stable place for me, then I started worrying about what my kids were eating. Probably not ideal, but like, I can't move a mountain. I can't change everything in my life all at once, or I just get too overwhelmed and I just go crawl into bed and order a pizza. So I don't know if that answers the Botox question, but I think you do what you want to do to help you get through the day.
Absolutely. Well, from my way, what I'm seeing, you don't need any Botox at all. And whatever you're doing, the mascara, wherever you're getting it, Sephora or Walmart, is wonderful. But yeah, the idea of the enemy of good being perfect, I mean, one step at a time, right? And actually, now that you mention your kids, one of our other questions was about your influence, from the chat rather, was about your influence on other people in your life. If your husband and yourself have influenced other people that you love apart from your mom, and maybe your children is a good place to start. What's going on with them right now in their way of eating?
The biggest thing I think through all this is, you know, we had tried to teach them is just, I'm hoping to give them this normal sense of balance and to try to give them better coping skills for food that aren't, or better coping skills that aren't food. You know, we try not to have every celebration be about food. They have birthday cake on their birthdays, but we talk about the fact that they don't need to have it at school for everybody else's birthday. And, you know, they don't need to have all those junks and sugar because of it's a Tuesday, or, you know, all the parties at school for no reason. You know, they look at old pictures of us and they see that mommy and daddy ate too much sugar and that's why we got sick. And we try to not talk about weight or fat or losing weight. It's more just about, like, mommy's not going to eat sugar because, you know, I'm trying to be healthy. And they know, I mean, we say, when we talk, they know what's the protein, and they talk about, you know, we say, okay, what's for lunch today? What kind of protein do you want for lunch today? Chris just took them on a picnic while I chat with you guys, and they got to pick out what protein do they want. And then, okay, now that you're finished your protein, like, what do you want to eat after that? And they picked out some sweet potatoes that we had pre-cooked, some green beans, cheese. And so then they just kind of put together their own little picnic. But they don't get sugar daily. We try to focus on keeping out grains. Like, we don't do real bread. We don't do real tortillas. We don't do cereals. We really try to keep any kind of grains, seed oils in general. So processed foods and seed oils, and just sugar. They know that fruit's a sugar. And if they want to have some blueberries sometime, that's fine. But that's the same thing as sugar. And so, you know, after lunch, they'll say, hey, can we have some blueberries? And sometimes we say yes, or sometimes we say nope. Remember, we had, you know, you had blueberries for breakfast, and that's enough sugar for the day. We don't need any more sugar today. And so we equate anything that's a grain or a, you know, they call real hamburger buns sugar buns. And we go to Costco and they're like, Mom, can we have sugar samples today at Costco? And sometimes we say yes, and sometimes we say no. It kind of depends on what it is and then what else is going on in our life right now. So they are not zero carb, but they are, you know, we try to keep those kinds of things out on a daily basis, I guess.
Fantastic. It sounds like you're designing some moderators that will be able
I
to
hope.
abstain.
And maybe that's crazy, right? Maybe I shouldn't expect them to moderate when I know that I can't. But I do hope that because they don't have 20 years of emotional eating terrible habits behind them, that they can, you know, learn to moderate that themselves. I even hear my 6-year-old telling the 3-year-old, like, buddy, we're going to have, sugar tomorrow at this place, or we're going to have something here. We have to eat, eat your eggs today, and that kind of thing. So I think they're hopefully understanding like what food does to our body and, how it makes us feel.
It sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. That's literally teaching them in their thinking to be moderated. It's really awesome. So cool to learn about. Thanks for sharing that. So another question from the chat is about how have you sorry, have you had any worries about violent vegans? Any concerns about, especially because you do have a history with veganism, that might even create more triggers for people?
Yeah. Well, I know the vegans don't think I was real vegan because I wasn't doing it for the right reasons.
Of course.
And I don't claim to be, obviously. I don't think so. I think that is such a small percentage of people in general. And, I'd be more worried about getting in a car accident on the freeway in my daily commute than I would be about like some angry vegan showing up somewhere. I'm sure if you did a Google search, you could figure out where I worked, but I try not to like put out there what my company is that I work at, because it's a normal job. I just don't need like somebody emailing our executives and telling them that I'm a, crazy person online or something. It's probably not that hard to figure out because I accidentally, did all this. So my first and last name are out there everywhere, and my stuff is all very public. But I think that, I'm not really, I guess I'm just more concerned with your average crazy person than necessarily like a crazy vegan person.
That's logical also. That makes sense. Any crazy should keep their distance. God willing, they will.
Yeah.
So another question from the chat is about how much your weight fluctuates, if you've noticed a fluctuation and what that looks like.
My weight does fluctuate, but that's because I'm still trying to like figure out how to be consistent. The only reason why my weight would fluctuate is if I'm inconsistent in what I'm doing, right? If I'm eating too often, if I start snacking a lot, if I tonight were to sit down after the kids go to bed and pull out a big plate and dump a bunch of pork rinds on it and some pepperonis and a bunch of cheese, and I start doing that like a few days in a row, of course, the scale's going to start going back up again. If I'm very consistent with my diet, my weight does not change at all. No matter if I'm eating 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of beef, somewhere in there, those small fluctuations in how much beef I'm eating, my weight would never change. Any fluctuations that I do have in the scale is all coming from my own inconsistencies. I still have those moments where I do have emotional eating. At this point, it turns into like carnivore stuff where I'm randomly cooking up bacon and eggs at 8 o'clock at night. But those types of, or munching, right? Packing the kids' lunches, munching on cheese. It's typically around some version of like processed meats and cheeses, where I find myself snacking way too much on those types of things. So then I will definitely see an impact on the scale. But it's my fault, right? I know that.
So it is feasible, it is possible to fluctuate, I guess, on carnivore, but the ideal is, the fact is that it's under your own control.
I believe so, fully. Yeah, definitely. I can pinpoint days and moments and times, and it's completely my fault when that happens, and I'm getting better about not doing it, but I still have to be very careful. And I'm still looking, like I said in the beginning, I still have those days when things are hard, and I've at least not reverted back to carbs for those emotional times, but I still have to work on not reverting to food in general for that. And that's what causes that change.
So another question that I really love in the chat here is, because I haven't mentioned it yet, your weight loss is inspiring to so many people. So thank you for that. When going through such an extreme weight loss, a lot of people are concerned that they might have excess or loose skin afterwards once they lose the weight. And so just wondering if you dealt with anything like that.
Definitely. I have some, I think my lower arms are a little bit there, but it's mostly my lower belly. I had if you see my before pictures, my lower belly was very stuck out a lot. I had the lower belly flap. I had, kind of an apron and a big, that's where I carried the majority of my weight. There's, a lot of women carry weight in like hips and thighs. Mine was 100% in my belly. And so I do have loose skin on my lower belly. I have like a lower belly saggy skin. I think over time, I'm hoping it will continue to improve. It's not something I have thoughts on having it removed unless somebody wants to pay for that. But that's, not something that's worth it for me. I think when, if I would have said it, I'm sure I said when I was 260 pounds, like, I would love to lose weight, but I'm concerned about loose skin. Like, that's just because I'm scared to lose the weight in the first place. And I don't think that I'll ever actually lose the weight. So I'm going to use, that's another excuse. I don't necessarily think, I think being carnivore, high protein, high fat, with a little bit of fasting mixed in there is the best way to mitigate that. I think mine had gotten better and better, and then some weight fluctuations I've had recently, maybe it's kind of like not changed much because my weight has not been as steady. I think that over time it will continue to get it better, and then at the end of the day, it's just kind of my reminder to not go back.
So great, we're going to take some questions from the chat now. So our first question is from Taryn. Let's see if we got her here.
Hi. First of all, just want to say thank you so much for putting your story out there and being vulnerable. It's very empowering to women who are doing this and dealing with the whole salad versus meat thing and just everything. So I'm curious, I saw an interview with you and your husband on Mark Bell, and it was incredible just how you guys were talking about, like, we just don't have cheat days. There's no cheat. It was just like an amazing resolve. And I was just kind of watching, like, in awe of that, because I'm really great most of the time. I have this one group of girlfriends that every time I hang out with them, I know I'm going to go off the rails in what I eat and everything. And I feel the effects, and every time I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I said I wouldn't do this anymore. I'm tired of doing this. It's like I'm in a relationship, an abusive relationship with myself. So just wondering if you have any sort of experience with that, or any sort of advice on, like, was there a moment when things just shifted, and you were just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, we're not doing cheat days. Like, what was, if that did happen, what was that like for you? Can you give any advice? I don't know.
I think I'm still figuring out if forever is no cheat days, right? Like, I'm still in that place of figuring that out. I know that, originally our plan was like, we're not going to have any cheat days until we hit our goal weight. And then right around that same time was when we started sharing things more. I think really I'm still trying to convince myself that I can't ever again have a cheat day. But I think the thing that I have to keep reminding myself over and over again is, like, you can't handle it. Like, why set yourself up for that, right? Just like an alcoholic does. They can't just, like, have one night where they go out and drink. And the social aspects and having people that aren't supportive of that is so hard, which is why sometimes it's just easier for me in those situations to fast, because, sometimes people don't notice if you're not eating, but if you're eating something weird, like, people might notice that more than if you're not really eating in a big group, I guess. It's hard. I know that. I don't know. I think because my husband is so supportive, it makes it a little easier for me, but, just trying to keep reminding myself of the fact that, like, you're not going to be able to get back on track again, and it's not worth it, is the main reason why I know that I have to stay strict. I don't know if that really answers your question. I'm sorry.
It's helpful. No, it's very helpful.
Yeah. The answer is I'm still figuring that out, I guess. I still am hoping for that revelation, that I'm hoping for. I can't wait for that peaceful moment, and I don't know if it'll ever come. I don't know if an alcoholic 5 years later all of a sudden goes, I'm free of the burden of the desire to want to drink. Like, I'm waiting for that freedom feeling that I don't have all the time yet. So that sounds very depressing, but, like, it still can be hard.
Yeah, ditto. I feel the same way. I'm waiting for that moment, but it may never come, and that's okay. It's just, you always get back on the horse and recommit, and that's just how it is. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your question, Taryn. That was excellent. We have another question here from someone very, very wonderful and inspirational also in our group, who you've already mentioned. So I'll bring her and unmute her now. Dr. Lisa?
Hello. I just want to make a comment to Laura's, well, just that last topic that, and not to be depressing here, but 11 years into this, and maybe because it is from my background of, binge eating and carb and sugar addiction, that I can't say that I still don't look at certain things and say, gosh, I wish I could eat that again. But knowing the pain behind the ramifications of going back to that, it's just it's a reminder. But I haven't hit that amazing moment that Laura, you're speaking of. I hope I get to it. Maybe at 15 years instead of 11 years, I'll hit that where I'm just totally complacent with this. I totally love that whole thing with the abstainer, moderator. I feel like anybody who's lived this kind of misery of, carb addiction knows that you can't moderate. And when I coach people, I actually do talk to them about saying you have to consider, just like a heroin addict and just like an alcoholic, that to me, and I'm not saying it's for everybody, but in my opinion, from my experience, it is just the slippery slope to nowhere good. And until you kind of go on that journey yourself and experience it yourself, I think you can't believe it, because heck, this is just food that everybody eats every day. And what do you mean this is as toxic as heroin or alcohol? But I believe to certain people it is. And, in answer to, I guess it was Taryn who was talking about the social situation, it's not easy, but for me, it's never, I have a group of friends that we go out, and it's never a thought that, oh, gee, I want to try to not go off the rails tonight. I mean, that's not a topic at all in my head. I look at the menu ahead of time, or I know places that we go, and I say, oh, there's naked chicken wings, and I will sit there and just eat my naked chicken wings. I'm not comfortable with the fasting thing, because if I show up with this group of 6 girlfriends and we're all there to go out to eat together, if I sit there and say, oh, I'm fasting, like, people would be like, oh, why'd you bother to come tonight? Like, I mean, not necessarily, but maybe in their head, like, you're just sitting there not eating. It's more awkward for me to do that than to just get some sort of little simple something that, I feel almost everywhere you can get a bunless burger. But it's all in your comfort level, and it's all, again, in your experience of, as you go through this. I don't know how long you're into, attempting this, but you will get to that point where it really doesn't matter. Like, to me, if we end up going to a strange restaurant that I hadn't had time to look up the menu, if I, whatever, there's going to always be something I can eat. And if it's just some little tiny chicken skewer thing, I'll go home and I'll eat a pound of ground beef. Like, it's no big deal. It's like, I try to use social situations more as socializing, and making them as, not awkward for myself as I can. But I don't know if I helped anybody with my experience of doing this, but I think for sure, I hate to say that there's, I just don't see it in my near future of still not thinking about it. And I think it's because I have a 30-year history of a nightmare that I lived that was only freed by this whole carnivore thing. And I think that's just the motivator for me, but I still can't say that there's still not that voice inside my head that remembers. And maybe because, different things that I have looked into, as far as sugar being 8 times more addictive than cocaine, I rationalize in my head, well, no wonder I'm having an issue with this. This stuff is really an addictive substance. So deal with it and be okay with it, and just move on and live your life.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I totally agree.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Dr. Lisa, thank you for your experience in sharing that. And another question has come here and from the anonymous chat saying that she's actually new to carnivore, and she's saying, so only ribeye, eggs, and salt, and I will get all the nutrients I ever need?
I think so. There are people who will disagree, saying you need other forms of supplements or organs or some other variety, but I think that ribeyes and eggs and salt is an amazing place to start, and then over time see how you feel. And if you feel like you're lacking in something else, then maybe try adding something. But at this point, a year and a half in, I don't take any supplements and I don't eat any organ meats, and I don't plan to unless all of a sudden I have a major, deficiency or health issue. But the people that there are some people who have been doing this for 20 years and they're eating ribeyes and eggs and salt, and that's it. So that's an amazing place to start and see how you feel.
Agreed. And so honestly, you've inspired so many people already. We're so honored to have had you here. It looks like we've run out of questions because you've given us a wealth of information. We appreciate you so much coming and inspiring more people to give up tracking, nothing left to track, and to feel good just eating meat, men and women alike. So thank you so much for being with us, Laura Spath.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
And we hope to see you around here again in our community. We'll look forward to it, and have a great day. Feel fab.
Thank you. You guys too.